The most important thing that we've said a few times already, and we're going to say it to you in a way that you can maybe hear it more clearly, is that the acclimation to your natural state of clarity is a gradual process since you've been practicing a state of confusion. When you think a thought for as little as 17 seconds, really 16 something, law of attraction responds to that thought in such a way that it compounds it. It brings another thought like it to it. And now that thought has more substance, more power, more attraction power. So unless something distracts you from that thought and you go another 17 seconds, now more. And unless something distracts you from that thought, another thought like it comes. And once you cross that 68 or 67, 66, once you get a little bit over a minute in this thought, there is enough momentum going that it will carry itself in your experience for a while. Now, understanding the physics, the law of attraction nature of these vibrational thoughts helps you, because law of attraction is working with you and for you all the time. But you get to direct your thoughts. And so as you observe life and you think about life that you're observing, you're doing a lot of that thinking of thoughts that are getting a stronger foothold. And that's what beliefs are. Beliefs are only thoughts that you continue to think. Now, anyone could think more productive, more beneficial thoughts. It is not a difficult thing to do conceptually. In other words, I could think about that or I could think about that. But what happens is, as you have these patterns of thought that you've been thinking, law of attraction only gives you thoughts within the range of those thoughts that you've been thinking. And so most people don't change the way they think about most things ever. Most people pass them on from generation to generation to generation to generation to generation, and you thrive and survive in spite of yourselves, really. What saves you is your diversity and the fact that there are more and more of you having more and more exposure to more and more ways of life. The way that you get to observe one another more and more now gives you an opportunity to witness the way others are living. It's not so much this village just being the way this village has always been. And the traditions that so many people want to hold to and go back to are really not your friends. Those traditions are habits of thought that work against your natural evolution, your natural wanting to become more. So it is our knowing that when you decide that you are a vibrational being first and foremost, and yes, you're physical, and yes, there's stuff manifesting all around you, but you're a vibrational being first and foremost, and that you can tell by the way you feel what you're doing vibrationally, and then you become weirdly, and one of the rare ones who does it, you become willing to be selfish enough to follow the thought that feels the best, not the thought of tradition. We've been talking about that a lot today. Following the thought that feels best to you, finding the tradition of your inner being's thought, finding the tradition of your true family of consciousness, finding the tradition of your clarity and your longevity and your vitality and your brilliance and your worthiness, you see. Reaching for thoughts that feel like that, something happens really relatively quickly when you begin approaching life like that. We could talk about conditions of the world and situations that you've lived and even situations that you are living. And we won't get as far in helping you in the answers that you are looking for as we get when we talk to you about start practicing knowing that you're vibrational and stop being so human. Stop being so action-oriented and be more emotionally guided. Care more about how you feel and less about what you're thinking. Talk less to everyone and observe more and pay attention to the way you feel. Get into the receptive mode before you go or do anything. And when you're sure you're in the receptive mode, then follow that process. And then watch the improvement on every subject in your life. It will be obvious to you. How are you? Vibrational. What you been doing? Vibrating. How's that working out? Feels great. In other words, start talking differently to people. And those that don't want to come with you, they won't have much to do with you anymore. How are you? I'm vibrational. And they'll say, all right, see you later, and off they'll go. If they're not up to speed with that, we're only kidding a little bit on that. You want to differentiate yourself from the tradition of beliefs that bind. There are so many binding beliefs. Do you follow that? We understand the idea of oneness in that when you come into alignment with who you are, you return to the non-physical energy that is you. And we talk about you having vibrational alignment with your inner being. But your inner being is not asking you to only think the thoughts that your inner being thinks. Your inner being is asking you to come into a new environment with new variety and new exposure to new life and have new thoughts. The mantra of the universe is more. Not one. It's more. And let your logic take you there. Doesn't that seem logical to you? We enjoy so much playing with all of you. And at the same time understanding that when you decide through the momentum that we've already accomplished together, through explaining to you the vibrational universe, and the step 1, 2, and 3 of deliberate creation, and the existence of the vibrational reality and your relationship to it. As we express to you in ways that are logical enough to you that your beliefs don't fight them, because your own life experience has shown you evidence of the validity of some of these words, then when you actually tune through meditation to that source energy knowledge, and you let yourself receive it, and you know you did, and you follow the impulse of that thought, and that impulse blossoms into the results that you have been asking for, then you have knowledge. This will help you. That feeling that you're reaching for, what so many people are reaching for or believing, is that in the meditation that they will have this great awakening and this great awareness, and the light will shine and the dawn will break and the cymbals will crash and bang, and that's when the moment of enlightenment will happen. No, that's an impulse that often doesn't have too much importance to it, except that you know it's an impulse that you received that wasn't your own. So you know it's guidance. And then if you're wise enough to follow that and see where it leads, eventually it will lead to the crescendo of manifestation. You see what we're getting at? Let whatever it is be enough. Don't be so quick to judge yourself not yet in the worthy seat, not yet in the receiving seat. Show yourself that you are, and let whatever it is be enough. That's really an important key, because wherever you are is enough. And you know why it is enough? It's got to be enough because it's all you got. You can't force it to be more than it is. But when you acknowledge what it is, and then that becomes more, and that becomes more, and then that becomes more. What we're getting at here with you, and we know that you're hearing it. We know that you are understanding that our primary point is that when you sit to meditate and you know that you are, and you trust the information that comes, and the reason you're able to trust it is because you're not asking it to be the answer to all things at once. You're not asking it to be the answer to everything that you're wanting to know. You're not even asking it to be the answer to the most important questions that you're holding in your heart. You're allowing it to be the answer that you're ready to hear. And you're trusting that your inner being knows the answers that you're most ready to hear. And you're trusting that not only does your inner being know the answers that you're most ready to hear, but your inner being is never judging you that you're not ready to hear other answers. That your inner being knows that there are specific, deliberate paths that are contoured just for you because of the combination of desires and beliefs that you uniquely hold, you see. That's why no one can write a book that leads everyone. That's why there's not one process that works the same way for everyone. And why would there need to be when you have this infinite intelligence within you that knows you and cares about you and knows everything that you're asking about and is able and willing to guide you? The question is, are you in the receptive mode? That's the only question that we want you to really find the answer to. As you're moving about, ask yourself often, am I in the receiving mode? What receiving mode am I in? Am I receiving from my source energy, or am I receiving from some spin-off of man's conscious thought? And once you start correlating this, once you make the logical connection between what you're doing vibrationally and what you're receiving, and then you have enough faith or trust in your own connection that you're willing to follow the impulse, whether it's a silly one or whether it's a grand one, and then you are able to witness the results of it as the proof. Trust first, alignment first, feeling first, emotion first, connection first, alignment first, knowing that you're aligned first, trusting first, emotional first, knowing what the emotion feels like, knowing what the emotion is supposed to feel like, knowing what the emotion does feel like, trusting that you're in alignment, and then, in alignment, and then. You see what we're getting at? And so we want you to focus upon your vibrational beingness first and foremost. The evolution of all species is about adaptation. And adaptation is about energy more than it is all other things combined. When there is a movement in your world that causes a lot of attention about something and therefore causes a lot of pinching off of energy that was formerly flowing, there is a slowing of the adaptation process. There is a faltering of it, a sort of hindering of it. When there is a renaissance of alignment, when more are hopeful or more are coming into vibrational alignment with who they are, then there is evidence of that, you see. But you cannot worry too much about what's going on in the world at large. This has to be an individual experience where you acknowledge that you are an extension of that source energy and keeping that valve open and consciously keeping it open. We really like the word and the feeling that it accomplishes within you as you hear it of the word of adaptation. Let's talk about that in energetic terms for just a little while. So let's say that, yes, always because of law of attraction, but law of attraction that you weren't really keenly aware was active within you. You become part of an awareness of something that activates a very powerful new desire within you. Well, that new desire automatically summons life force, because if a desire is activated, this is the thing that most humans don't understand. They still think that source is asserting. Source is not asserting. Source is being summoned by the perspective of those of you who are here in your physical form, out here on this leading edge. So as life causes you to call something forward, then the calling of that's part of that adaptation. It's certainly about attraction. So as you're asking for this energy that you weren't asking for formerly, because life wasn't causing you to ask for it formerly, now you've got to adapt to the new energy that you are summoning, which means you got to care about the way you feel. You've got to find a way now of adjusting your thought in order to accommodate the new energy that you have summoned. You see what we're getting at? And when you do, then you come back into alignment. In other words, now you're asking for and receiving, and now this adaptation has taken place within you. The wild beasts of your planet are much better at adaptation than humans, because they don't worry about things, and they don't look back, and they don't care who their ancestors are. They tap into the current stream of consciousness. They're not trying to guide so much through their thinking process, through their process of making it happen. They're more inspired and following the impulse, you see. And so adaptation among the beasts of your planet is an extraordinary process, and you have to have a little bit of a long view in order to really understand it. But the same is true of humans.